Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of DM Bloodworth's live stream. This time, I'm going to be focusing on Castles and Crusades, and the very beginning of our campaign. This is my first Castles and Crusades campaign, and although this was supposed to, begin 2 hours ago or so, had some glitches in trying to get the system to work out, um, with combining StreamYards with Roll20, as well as with some other aspects that I was trying to do, share screens and such, and so it just wasn't working out, and I didn't want to, spend the time and waste your time coming in and um, seeing a mess. So what we did accomplish during our session zero for my Castles and Crusades campaign. So it's going to be called Crusaders of Darrofel, and Darrofel is my homeworld game setting for Castles and Crusades, and I wanted to introduce the players first. So all the players came in. Were actually 4 out of the 5 players had come in today, and they, quickly introduced themselves, and they started talking a little bit about their characters. We started to I started to assign their characters on Roll20, which is a little bit of a process, and selected some avatars for them, and now they have control and they can start populating their characters. And I am going to do a share and show what these characters look like very briefly, one by one, and then going to talk a little bit more about session zero. So let me begin with that first question. So what is a session zero, and what is it useful for? I have found that session zero is very useful for, number one, introducing players and their characters to one another. Especially, this is important if you have some new players coming on. So, of the 5 players, 2 are players that I've been DMing for with a AD&D First Edition for a little over a year now. So we're very familiar with each other. They kind of know what my game mastery style is and what to expect. The other 3 players are brand new to my game mastery, and never played with them before. I've spoken to them over the course of so the OGGM has joined me in my game, and I'll talk a little bit about him and my connection with him. Ducato, who is playing in my game for the first time, and then Pete, who I only recently met. He came in looking to play in this campaign as well. This is also the first daytime campaign that I've run. So Tuesday, it'll run Tuesday mornings from 11:30 to roughly 3 o'clock p.m. Every Tuesday, and we began with session zero today. And so we got out of the way player introductions and character introductions. So each of my players and characters, I will read them off, and I will try to do a share screen on each of them, and then see how this works. So let's do share, and that way I can show the character along with a brief description of each. So we will begin with this character here. So this is Arwas Angarana, She is an elf ranger, and as you can see by the screens, and let me just double check to make sure that we are sharing. Yes. So, and I just closed it. Like I said, this is the kind of thing that I was going through before. Let's just reshare again and go back. Chrome tab and go back here and share. So once again, so we have Arwas Angarana. She is a ranger, an elf, neutral good alignment. You have her languages, her movement, her level. Here, she only has, she actually needs 2 primaries. So I'll have to talk to her about that. If she's a ranger, and an elf, she's going to have 2. One that goes with class, and then the other it's important for her roles. So I'll get back to her. She'll probably go with Dex, but anyway, good to look this over. So originally she was going back and forth between being a ranger or being a ranger bard, and she decided, Leah decided that she was going to go with just a straight up ranger, and so started getting some of the feedback from her as far as like what is her character motivations and such. You can see her various abilities here. So she's a combat marauder. She can conceal, delay, and neutralize poisons. She has a favorite enemy, which she went with humanoids. She can move silently. She can wear scale. A ranger ability scale. That means climbing, I'm sorry. She had traps, survival, and tracking. So part of her story is because she listened to kind of the setup, the initial introduction of the campaign world that they're in. And they have, a word had gone out from a hamlet that it has been harried by raids from a particular goblin tribe that is very organized and very vicious in their attacks, and and they've been a real problem. And it's a very, very large, goblin tribe that will most likely require an all-out war kind of effort against in wiping them all out. But what these particular hamlets are concerned about is these small pockets of this tribe that the main lord of the region did not send his forces out to clash with these particular small cells of goblins. And so that's why these hamlets had called out to bring them in. So that's where the party members are going to begin with. This is just the general idea. So she's an elf ranger. This is her purpose in going out there, that she sees the opportunity to to utilize her prowess against her favorite enemy, and also at the same time help out these these poor villagers in this particular hamlet. So that's her character coming in. And you can see, if you're not familiar with the system, Castles and Crusades uses a system like if she selected one of these others, and I will have to double back to her and see. Originally she might have had this character originally with multiple primary requisites, so I'll double check with her and see. But you can see, I mean, a first level character, they have all kinds of items and possessions, and she still has some gold pieces left. Here's her basic features. So she's 5'7", 117 pounds. She told me her weight, her age was like 3 and change. This might actually be the older PDF that we have, but she'll have to update this one. So now I am going to bring up the next character. So I removed that one, and let's do another share. So let's stop sharing and let's bring up the next. So this character, and got to go back. Yeah, this is a bit awkward to do this kind of a share. So let's see if any comments in the comments section. None. If you have any comments or questions about Castles and Crusades, or about about what I do for a session 0, please feel free to jump in with that. So what is a session 0 useful for? And I will bring up the next character in this to introduce you to. And we are going to go to tab, and we're going to bring up the wizard. So this is Osric Grimhall, a Hollow of the Tal. He is a wizard, human, neutral, and he only speaks common. That'll be interesting. So you can see here a human character. They get three primary attributes. So his is intelligence, that comes from being a wizard, and then wisdom and charisma are the other two that he chose to select. Humans get to choose 3, and you can see, we go down, you can see his abilities, class abilities. He has bonus spells at 1st and 2nd level. Few things here. He didn't list his spells there. He listed his spells down here. So he has Mage Hand, Detect Magic, Light, Mage Hand again, Summon Familiar, Shocking Grasp, and Identify. He gets a +1 to Identify. So those are some of his skill ability or spell abilities. We're going to change his age. He's going to make his character older, because as we were talking and looking at his character stats and just trying to get a sense of where the OGGM's character is. This is the OGGM, by the way. So when trying to develop an idea of how his character is going to be introduced into this adventure party, he brought up, and as I said, that this character sheet is not fully up to date yet either. It doesn't have his armor class in, as you can see in some other information. So when we were discussing how to introduce this character in there, he came up with the backstory that he's an old wizard. He's been spending all of his time just working as a glorified scribe in the Wizards Academy, and he's now in the, perhaps not in the twilight of his years, but he's certainly older, and he's looking to get out there in the world and show that he wants to start adventuring before he gets too darn old to begin adventuring. So that's his motivation. And then now he's heard about these goblins. He's in the primary city, the main city, where the player party is beginning, and so he has already heard about these goblins to the south of his location, and so he is going to head out to one of these small hamlets to see how he can assist as a magic user against these against one of these groups of goblins. And so that's how he is going to end up being introduced. And it was a combination of both, like some of his ideas and his depiction, and then some of my input, and the back and forth between the two of us is what brought this character into play. So let's see if I can automatically shift over to the next character. And let's see if this one is sharing. So I can go, I don't think I can do it this way though. Let's stop the share. And yeah, I have to do them individually, which is kind of a pain. So next one up is going to be Perin the Cleric. So let me go back to share. And this is a bit of a pain. So I apologize for that. So as a matter of fact, we changed the pantheon for the world that we're creating. So instead of using Aird, which is the official Castles and Crusades world setting, we're using my own homebrew. And I've always been very fond of Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age mythos. And so I'm bringing those gods into play. And all I have to do is just do a write-up of each of the gods and kind of make them compatible with Castles and Crusades. So I'm really looking forward to doing that as like a mini side project. So you can see here, he is a human cleric. He's lawful good. Deity is now Mitra. He has his strength, which is quite high actually, is 16 strength, and that's his primary, as well as his wisdom and charisma. He has an 18 charisma, so very, very high wisdom, and a 14 charisma, which is still fairly high as well. He has an AC of 16, which is pretty darn high for a first level character. He has +4 for his armor, +1 for his shield, and a +1 mod for his AC that comes from his dexterity. He's wearing chainmail. He has a medium steel shield. He has 10 hit points. Again, pretty high for a cleric, but he has a constitution of 16, so that's easily seen. Carries a bastard sword, so unlike D&D, Castles and Crusades clerics can use blade weapons. In particular, like I said, as I develop the conversion of Hyborian deities to Castles and Crusades, I'll make those modifications there. His class abilities, again, these character sheets are not fully filled out, but he can turn dead, and then he has his spells down here. So he can cast First Aid twice a day. He can detect magic once a day. He can bless first level spell and cure light wounds first level spell. And he's 5'11", male, blonde, 185 pounds, 19 years of age, and blue eyes. So what was over here? Oh, this is his encumbrance total. Like I said, some of these character sheets are not fully fleshed out yet. So we can go back here. You see now this time it transitioned correctly. Comments, let's see. Yeah, I'll double check that. Well, like I said, some of the character sheets are not fully filled out, and I'll double check that. An 8 is a -1 modifier, and that's possible. Let's see. I'll take a look at Osric again and see. I don't have his character sheet. Here it is. So an 8 dexterity. Yes, it might very well be a -1. So I'll double check that. But thanks for pointing that out. And some modifiers aren't in there at all. Yeah, they like I said, these character sheets are not 100% filled out. like I said, especially like he's missing his movement rate, he's missing his AC, and let's see. Yeah, he's not wearing any. Well, he's a magic user, so he's not going to have any armor, but he still has to put what clothing he is wearing. And so, yeah. So I will touch bases with him and make those corrections. But thanks for pointing that out. So next one up, I am going to take this guy, Perin down, and we're going to go to stop sharing. So he's gone, and we have one left. So let's share. Yeah, I'm sorry about this. This is more tedious. Thank God I didn't do this earlier on. So here is the last of the characters of the players that showed up today. One wasn't able to make it. He's going to be playing a gnome illusionist rogue. Let's see how Perin has his character set up here. So he's playing a Primal Druid, and you get Primal Druids from the Adventurer's Backpack supplement. So that has a number of, I just bought it today. They have a number of subclasses and class modifications, plus new magic and all kinds of stuff. So I just ordered it. I have the PDF. And looks really cool. A lot of cool things in there, especially like the backpacks. If you watch my last video, I actually spoke about the various backpacks. Now, what this does is that this gives you a detailed list of what actually comes with those specialty backpacks. So I really like that. So here we have a Primal Druid. He's an elf. He's neutral, knows Common and Elven, probably knows some more languages than that. So again, a little bit incomplete here. Unless I believe he might even said that that's the only ones that he chose to know. But I'll have to touch bases with them and see if that's exactly where he was going with. I think that was one of his things, was that he didn't want to know too many languages. It's a player, Pete, by the way, so he's brand new to my group. I've never played with him before. If I didn't mention, Perin is Staccato, and Stan is his real name, and I hadn't played with him before either, but I've known Staccato for quite some time on YouTube and such. And Pete, first time I met him was when he joined this campaign. So we've been speaking for about a week and a half to 2 weeks or so. So really cool to have met him today, and looking forward to running this campaign for him. So he's playing a Primal Druid, and Primal Druids are a little bit different. They get abilities. They don't get spells, or much more limited selection of spells. So that's going to be interesting. I have to further read through the new book that I just got to start learning a little bit about them. But so they have Nature Law, which is wisdom. They have Trackless Step. They have Woodland Stride. They'll get that at 3rd level. Spell Dominance at 5th level. Area Dominance at 7th level. And Nature Barrier at 10th level. He's starting off with, he has a +1 to composite bows as a racial ability. He has enhanced senses, Twilight Vision. He moves silently. He has spell resistance to charm and sleep. He spots hidden doors with a wisdom check. And these are his pluses based on that. He has hide armor, a club, composite, longbow, a quiver with a score of arrows, clean robes, a backpack, 10 bandages, which is good for 2 wounds, spill rope, a silk rope, flint and steel, a fishnet, and such. So reading about or listening to Pete described his character, he wants his character to to go beyond just where he's been at, and kind of travel around the world. So he's been somewhat isolated in his elven enclave, and just learning as much as he possibly could around the woodland villages, and possibly even elven city that he's been there for quite some time. And he and Arwas know each other, and this is how, as a castle keeper, I kind of, because you have to discuss how do these characters know each other. And so it was very simple to, with the four of them, since two are elves and two are humans, and the two humans are kind of city bound, or at least that's where most of their time has been spent. And these two elves are coming from an outside region. It's easy to make sure that these four player characters, or just set up the reasonable story that they all know each other. All right, so these two elves know each other, and the two humans, the cleric and the magic user, likewise know each other. And so they're going to come together from two separate areas, and come in and meet up in the same hamlet, all with the same intent to quell or even destroy these local cells of goblins that are really harrying the area, and then perhaps pick up a few other little tidbits along the way of interest, which is where I will introduce some other elements that go beyond just you're going to go out and kill a bunch of goblins. So one of the things that I've been harping on with Castles and Crusades is that Castles and Crusades really does focus on that old school feel to it, and it really does emphasize the three pillars of RPGs, and that is combat, exploration, and interaction. And as I was doing my video yesterday talking about the Castle Keeper's Guide, and the next one I'm going to go into is chapter 4 in the NPCs, as the Castle Keeper's Guide talks about, I'm sure that social interaction is going to become even more prevalent when I go through that section of the Castle Keeper's Guide, and really start to see how you flesh out a world to to encourage the players to role play their characters. And even in this very first session, the players are already looking at their characters' equipment, and thinking about their backstories. And all of their backstories are fairly simple. They're not these huge complex backstories, 5-6 page long backstories or anything like that. It was just they all recognize that their characters are fairly young, with the exception of the OGGMs, who is fairly old, but he already explained away why his character is so inexperienced as far as adventuring is concerned. He spent all of his many years as a glorified, as he said, a glorified scribe, basically. And now he's kind of like, I want to get out there in the world, and I want to experience things, and I'm tired of being in this library and just doing this kind of thing. So I'm going to get out there, and I'm going to adventure. The druid in the party, very similar kind of background, felt kind of like he was just locked up in a sense of, perhaps by his own device of just being in the, his particular area, of the, the woodlands, and never venturing forth before. So he wants to get out there now and see the whole world. He's tired of just living there for potentially hundreds of years or decades at least, and not really experiencing anything outside of that. So, and then the other two players are, the cleric wants to go out there, and he's aware of this threat, especially to these small communities. So he wants to go out there and he wants to, fight the good fight. He wants to help these people overcome these obstacles, and through the power of Mitra, he is going to do that. And finally, the ranger, the elven ranger, she wants to go out there and, and bring an end to these humanoids in the area. It's her favored enemy, and so she is going to put her skills, and other context now that she has with the rest of the party. She's going to put all of that to good use against this, this opposition that they're facing. So this all came out of perhaps an hour long, or slightly longer than an hour long session zero. Session zeros don't have to be long. The rest of the time during the session zero, after we introduced ourselves and then our characters, and then introduced or came up with some backstories that could then be intertwined with one another. Another thing that we spent during this session zero was I, as the castle keeper, just gave them some heads up. Like I said, only one of the players I've played with for over a year now, so she's fairly familiar with where I was going with the, explaining how I run my game. But I spoke to my players now and talked to them about knowledge, and how a player's knowledge and a character's knowledge might be, or almost always going to be two separate things. And so I think it's really important for immersion that, characters know what they've experienced. And so as they're going through their adventures, they are going to continue to gain experience and learn about new things. Now, they might all know things that are fairly common ahead of time, but they're not going to know what the players know. All right, and that I think is really important for you as a game master of whatever game that you're playing, that you manage well. You manage the separation between player knowledge and character knowledge, and you give the character the ability to grow over time. And that is the exploration pillar of role playing. All right, is more so not just the physical traveling around, but it's an exploration of the mind, as I always like to explain it. And so that's really important for you to build up in the players, is the idea that, oh, my character wants to go out there and my character wants to learn things and to build their knowledge base, and to ask questions about things that are, that they're seeing. And if they don't quite understand it, maybe somebody else in the party does, and talk to one another that way as well. So that's where you're bridging the desire to learn, the desire to explore, and now you're crossing over into the interaction. Because if they themselves can't experience it and see it and hear it and smell it or even taste it, then they're going to ask the other party members, hey, have you ever seen this thing? Do you know anything about this? And that's how you get them to interact. So now you have exploration and interaction working together. All right. Combat is another thing. It's probably the most, it's the easiest of the three pillars to understand. All right. And it's the one that can be overlooked as far as how does it connect to the other two pillars of role playing. So anytime that they encounter an uncommon creature and they do combat with it or they interact with it in some other way, they're going to gain new knowledge. If they're combating it, they're not only going to gain new knowledge about the way it fights, which is an important knowledge base to actually understand. So they're going to learn, does it have any kind of resistance to anything, depending on what was thrown at it or not. They might suddenly realize, hey, I've never encountered a troll before, but now I see that they're highly susceptible to fire damage. And so now they're going to add that to their player character's knowledge base. They know it now, and they're going to utilize that in the future. So they're learning the exploration pillar from doing combat. All right. Now they have all of this added information, from their experiences. And when they go back into town, they might share it with some of the NPCs that are in that town, maybe the captain of the guard. Hey, you know what? We encountered some types of creatures out here that are very susceptible to fire. Just keep that in mind if they ever bother anyone, coming in or out of your village, or trying, a caravan coming to your village, or maybe one leaving. Maybe they should all carry some torches and just be ready to deal with this particular foe. That is the social interaction pillar that is a result of their learning the exploration pillar, and they didn't learn it until they had fought those creatures, so the combat. So all three of these pillars are what was the vision and the design theory behind all role-playing games, is that you want to do all three of these things when you're writing adventures or you're running adventures, and the players are looking to do all these three things, or they should be looking to do all of these things. I always try to encourage my players to don't just get bogged down with the numbers of the die when you're rolling the dice. I can see that you hit it. All right. That you hit it. You don't have to tell me I rolled a 14, I hit. No, you just roll that die. When I see that you hit it, you know that you hit it. All you have to say is, I swing my sword and it hits the goblin. You might do a side roll of, where it had hit. It hit him in the torso, hit him with such great force that it actually pushed him back. Or maybe did enough damage where, it was such great force and his body crumbles to the ground and he lays there bleeding out and dies. All right. The player can describe all of that without actually telling me what their hit roll was and how much damage was done. All right. I might describe to them the amount of damage that was done to the creature. That way they know what they rolled, but they don't know what the effect of that roll necessarily is until I tell them what they see for themselves. And then they see, wow, that goblin died from the 4 hit points of damage that I dealt. Gets deposited into the mind of the player and the mind of the character, because now the character realizes, hey, these things aren't very tough. I mean, I know that I hit it and I know how hard that I hit it, and yet it still died. So I know that these things may not pose that much of a threat, because even at like half my strength of a hit, still killed it. And so they have than a reasonable expectation going forward. So this is what is meant by getting all three of those pillars working together simultaneously in many cases, and not getting bogged down with describing things as the numbers that you roll, but instead you're role playing out what happened. What is the impact? I, as the castle keeper, I am going to explain what the outcome was in a way that the players kind of get a sense of, all right, now I know that this thing is almost dead. Maybe another hit like that will kill it. And so it encourages them to not only listen to my description, but it's going to inform them as to what their next possible action will be. And so that's the importance of staying away from numbers and doing more role playing, and even acting out the scenes, asking them, or the player's actually better off just informing me, this is where my character is at, this is what my character is doing. Then if it's something that the character should be able to do without any real effort, I'll tell them, all right, you've opened the door. All right. Then the character will then speak and say, well, this is what I'm going to do in this situation. And I will think of an attribute that might be appropriate for that. All right. All right. You make an attempt to pry open this small box. The player makes the roll. I know what attribute is being used for this. It's going to be a strength attribute check. The character fails. I don't have to say, nope, a 7 doesn't work. You needed to roll this. No, I just tell them, you fiddle around with the box. You're trying to get your knife point dug into there in order to pry open that lid, and it is ineffective. It does not work. If it's a critical failure, maybe the knife breaks. All right. So all without referring to numbers. So it's very, very important when you're looking to set the tone in session 0, you're looking to explain how the game is going to look and feel and sound while you're all sitting at that table. Whether it's a live table or virtual table doesn't make any difference. It's still the same purpose of the session 0, is to kind of explain what is everything going to look like at this table. Now, does that mean that something could rise that you weren't thinking of? Sure. I mean, that probably almost always happen. But that's when you have a conversation, that, hey, you know what, we didn't even think about this, but now that it's coming up, this is how it will be handled. And it's very simply done that way. Ultimately, session 0's purpose is to introduce everybody to one another, learn a little bit about the characters that they're going to bring to the table, for the castle keeper. The castle keeper is going to explain how he or she is going to basically run their game table, and what the expectations are for the players, and what they can expect from you. I know during our session 0, I talked a little bit about showing up on time, but if you are going to miss, just inform us, let us know if you can. If it's an emergency, that's fully understandable, and we can move on from there. But if someone is consistently either late or absent, certainly without any notice or anything like that, eventually what's going to happen is that we're going to fill the slot with somebody else. that can come in on a reliable basis. And it's not like I'm a school teacher. I'm actually a former school teacher, but I'm not sitting there taking attendance. But if the person's absence becomes the thing they're most known for, then that's going to be a problem. And you've got to move on from there. But this is laid out in session 0. All right. So that's another use for session 0, is so that the players are informed of what your game master style is and your expectations for how they will function at the table. This morning, I didn't have to tell anybody you're expected to treat each other with respect. I mean, we're all adults. That should be a given, so, I shouldn't have to tell anybody, oh yeah, by the way, you should always be respectful to everybody at the table. That's, if you have to say that up front, I mean, what are you dealing with? It's like, no, I just assumed that everybody at the table knew that reasonable expectation is that you're all going to, speak and treat each other with respect. We're all adults at the table. I think virtually every one of us is over 40 years old, let's say. I mean, maybe Pete was maybe a little younger. I think he's probably still over 40 as well. But we shouldn't have to, set it up as if we're talking to teenagers with no life experience that, they don't know how to socially interact with anybody in a neutral or positive way. So no, we didn't use, there were no safety tools spoken about at the table. I did speak to them about, character death. If a character dies, and I just talked about different scenarios of how I've seen my players deal with it. I've had some players just take the body and toss it off to the side and say, all right, well, hopefully we can come back and take them and give them a proper burial later, but we're moving forward. I've had others that say, hey, let's take his body back. All of us are a little bit injured. We're going to draw back, maybe come up with a different plan, and then return back in a couple of days, maybe, and try to take it on from potentially a different angle or different tactic, or we're going to come back with, maybe some additional men-at-arms to give us a hand or whatever. So that's another way to handle it. And the third way, which I laid on the table, but it's not one that I pretty much said, I don't anticipate this ever happening, is that, if a player character dies and it's early enough on in the session, we're not going to stop the session and everybody go home. That's not respectful to, everyone at the table. And that's not, it's not respectful for their time. The time dedication that went into showing up to that table, and they're looking forward to a 3-hour gaming session or a 3.5-hour gaming session. And, if one of the player character dies within the first 15 minutes of that game session, it's absurd to think that you're going to stop it dead there and no pun intended, and then go home. No, you're going to, maybe role play that event there, and maybe alter your plans a little bit, but the session will not end just because a player character dies. We might have to take like a 5-minute break while I scramble through and think of, well, how are we going to introduce the new character to this situation, being played by the player whose character just died. That's usually how I try to handle those kind of instances. It's like, make sure you have a backup character, because in some game systems, that's really important to have, is a backup character. And I told everybody today during our session 0, just be mindful that, Castles and Crusades is probably a little bit more lethal than AD&D First Edition, because it does have creatures in here that are mythological creatures, and even small, low hit die creatures pack a huge punch in their attack. And their attack damage, it would kill most first level characters. So I told him that this is not going to be a campaign where it's really hard to kill player characters. It's going to be run in a way that, and the game system is really designed that, new player characters need to be somewhat cautious about what they're doing. They need to really plan things out, fairly well with their party, in order to up the chances of their survivability. It's not a given. Um, it's actually probably more geared towards, if they just run headlong into this thing, they'll probably all get wiped out. So they not only have to move forward, which is, the consequences of them not moving forward with it could be just as bad as well. But so they have to move forward, keep on moving forward, but do it in a way where they're mitigating the chances of them possibly losing too many party members. There's always the chance is dumb luck and your character gets killed. And, how you're going to respond to that, not as the player whose character got killed, but as the party, how are they going to respond to that event, is important to kind of discuss ahead of time. That way, there's no real surprise, or they just remember, hey, you know what, we had this conversation, and Johnny's fighter just died, and he was our frontline fighter. There's nobody else that can do what he was doing. Maybe we should consider doing, this or that or the other thing instead, and then come back here with a little bit more oomph to our combat ability, so that that kind of thing doesn't happen again. All right, that's an appropriate response. Does it mean that the game session's ending? No, it means that the game session is going to shift to a different activity than what might have been planned, but it's a reasonable shift. It's one that, makes sense for the player characters to do. So that comes out of session 0. And those discussions that you have during session 0 to kind of lay the groundwork for that kind of thing to take place. So I am going to double check any comments once again, and nope, no new comments. I know this is a kind of a weird time of the day, and there's only a few viewers and everything, but hopefully these will be game sessions that you're actually going to be able to watch, and this is going to begin next week. So next Tuesday at this same time, we'll actually be well into our game, and probably looking to wrap up that particular session. So these sessions are going to run from 11:30-ish to about 3 o'clock-ish, or maybe slightly earlier than that. But they will run at least 3 hours, and you will see some gameplay next time. Now that we've all introduced our characters, I have a few little things to tighten up with the character sheets, so that when I print them out, I have, everything I need in front of me. And you're going to see a combination of Roll20, Theater of the Mind, and interaction through StreamYards as well, all simultaneously. So once again, thanks for joining, and I'll have to come up with a name for these Castles and Crusades series of live streams. So I will come up with a name for it for the next time. And you'll have a great time. I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon. And, if our number stays at 4, I'm certainly going to have at least 1 or 2 slots open and available for anybody to join if they're available on Tuesday mornings from 11:30 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. So if you are interested in that, certainly give me a little shout, and I'll see if we can bring you on in. Right now, if our current rogue illusionist isn't able to show up, that's going to be our real slot that we need, is a rogue or a thief or whatever character class also carries those same abilities as well. But without any more comments in the comments section, I am going to close this one out. So once again, thanks for joining. I hope you liked this video. If you have any questions or comments to make about session zeros and what makes them useful, or what some things that you actually do in yours, then please feel free to leave those comments in the non-live stream section. And so when you post those comments, I'll be able to see them in probably a couple of hours, and then I will respond directly to any of those comments in there. So as always, thanks for joining. I hope you liked this video, and I look forward to seeing you sometime soon on the game screen, or perhaps in real life, because we have some conventions that are coming up, and the local ones. I went to one recently and it was great. So looking forward to meeting more people out there at these local gaming conventions here in the tri-state area. So New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. I might shoot out to Massachusetts in April. I'll see. I think that one's like 2 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes or something from me. So it's enough to be a long haul. Probably only do one weekend or 1 day session, drive 2 hours, stay there for 6, drive 2 hours back, makes it a full day. So, but anyway, thanks for stopping by. Have a great day. And then we have a comment. Let's see. Damn, made it home late. We'll catch up after lunch. Yeah, sorry about that. Basically it was just a session zero. It didn't happen at the time that I was looking at the live stream, and then I had a lot of glitches of trying to get StreamYard and Roll20 working simultaneously to do a whole presentation kind of thing. And although I did learn a couple new tricks here, it was just a little bit too cumbersome, at the time. So yeah, you didn't miss much, but hey, you're welcome to listen in to my just talking about session zero and what I felt worked well with this particular session zero that I had, and then just asking any of you, how do you do session zero, and what are some pointers or things that you found in session zero that were valuable for you and perhaps for others when they read the comment as well. So yeah, so as always, thanks for joining. Man of War, you have a great rest of your day. I know you just made it home, so relax a little bit, chill, have a drink, and get ready to do some gaming. So it's Tuesday night, so I have my Tuesday night AD&D First Edition campaign coming up at 8 p.m. And I'm not going to mess around with trying to live stream that. Well, it might be fun, but we'll see how many people show up. Hopefully, I think one person is away. Second one might be away as well, so it might be a small group tonight. And that will be session 61. So 61 weeks of gameplay. So again, thanks for joining. Have a great afternoon, everyone.